In the last chapter, we saw the flood waters overtaking this box temple, this micro-Eden on the chaotic waters. Humanity was ruining itself and God's good world, so God finished the job, letting violence and evil lead to its natural conclusion, death. But inside this sacred space was a remnant of God's good world, covered by his faithfulness. There were animals, food, family, and one man in particular whom it was said would bring comfort from the curse of the ground. So we read here in the middle of the story, "But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and domestic animals that were with him in the ark." God remembering is covenant language. It highlights God's faithfulness to the commitments he's made, and he's going to act on their behalf. He cares deeply for his creation, people and animals, including the creatures that can do nothing in return. This isn't a story about Noah, it's a story about God. It reminds us that even when life seems to spin out of control and the cosmos collapses, he hasn't forgotten his people. He hasn't forgotten you. God caused a wind to blow over the earth, and the waters receded. Hey, this sounds like Genesis 1, a ruach, a wind or spirit moving over the waters. And then the waters recede. It's a sign that new creation is coming. The fountains of the deep and the floodgates of heaven were closed, and the rain stopped falling from the sky. The waters kept receding steadily from the earth, so that they had gone down by the end of the 150 days. On the 7th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on one of the mountains of Ararat. This is actually a range, so it's not necessarily the singular Mount Ararat, but don't miss this. The ark rests on Ararat. Who's in the ark? Noah. Why was he named Noah? Because in Hebrew, Noah sounds like nuach, rest or comfort. Let's jog back to Genesis 5. Lamech named him Noah, saying, "This one will bring us comfort from our labor and from the painful toil of our hands, because of the ground that the Lord has cursed." The Hebrew form of the word curse here is ararach. It sounds a lot like Ararat. These authors are brilliant. So the flood waters have purified the land, they've washed over the ground and the mountains, and Noah, who walked with God, is in this box that rests on top of the curse of the land. God is faithful. Well, the waters keep receding, and let's skip down to verse 6. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven. It kept flying back and forth until the waters had dried up on the earth. The raven is going to be a ritually unclean bird in the law. It's associated with death. It feeds on carrion. It can eat its fill out there. It gets sent away from the locus of God's presence and never comes back. Then Noah sent out a dove to see if the waters had receded from the surface of the ground. The dove is a ritually clean bird in the law. It needs plants and seeds for food, which it apparently had in the ark. The dove could not find a resting place for its feet because water still covered the surface of the entire earth, and so it returned to Noah in the ark. The unclean goes away, and the clean comes to stay. The bird couldn't find rest outside of the salvation that God had provided. At the end of Deuteronomy, God warns Israel that they would find no resting place for the soles of their feet if they live in disobedience to God. But there would be rest in the safety of the covenant. Now watch what it says about Noah. He stretched out his hand, took the dove, and brought it back into the ark. The last time we saw a hand stretched out was in the garden, after Adam had sinned. God banished humanity from the garden so that they would not reach out and grasp the tree of life, thus prolonging sin and its effects. Now Noah stretches out his hand to offer rest to one of God's creatures. We'll have to watch out for hand symbolism in Genesis. It often refers to the choices we make with the power we have. Adam and Eve used their hands to grasp for God's authority. Noah accepted God's authority and used his hand to bring rest to one of the most vulnerable of covenant members. The cosmos is ruined by violence and injustice. It is restored when we channel God's blessings to others. He waited 7 more days and then sent out the dove again from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, so God's timepieces are still in order, there was a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak. Now trees and plants are emerging. God is creating again. But there's another connection here. Remember, the ark foreshadows the tabernacle, and in the tabernacle instructions in Exodus, we see this little tidbit. Command the Israelites to bring you clear oil of pressed olives for the light, so that the lamps may be kept burning, from evening till morning. This is to be a lasting ordinance among the Israelites for the generations to come. This little reference to an olive leaf in the evening hints at God's perpetual presence with his people, even when the world seems dark. We're reminded of the God who said, "Let there be light," and birthed the universe out of chaotic waters. This is a symbol of hope. There's another connection in Exodus 23. For 6 years you are to sow your fields and harvest the crops, but during the 7th year let the land lie unplowed and unused. Then the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and so that the slave born in your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Now back to the dove story. Noah's giving this bird rest. Did you notice verse 10? This happened after 7 days. Okay, so this dove has an olive leaf. While we're looking at Eden connections, what happened to Adam and Eve when they knew they were naked? They sewed fig leaves. Their shameful knowledge led to hiding behind leaves. But when God brings a leaf to Noah, there's a reversal. Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. The leaf led to knowledge of good. God is training him in wisdom. He waited another 7 days and sent the dove out again, but it did not return to him this time, which is a good sign because it suggests the expansion of Eden. Noah is not the center of God's plan. In Noah's 601st year, in the first day of the first month, that sounds like a new beginning, the waters had dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. Atonement has been made. God has wiped the slate clean, and he is making all things new. And by the 27th day of the second month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah and said, "Come out of the ark, you, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you all the living creatures that are with you. Bring out every living thing, including the birds, animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Let them increase and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." It's the creation story all over again. Animals, birds, creepers, and a blessing to flourish. And notice, humanity is told to bring out the animals, so there's the dominion being reestablished. And again, it's not a conquering dominion, this is a rule that promotes flourishing. Humanity is tasked with keeping creation healthy. Noah went out along with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives. Every living creature, every creeping thing, every bird, and everything that moves on the earth went out of the ark in their groups. Noah built an altar to the Lord. He then took some of every kind of clean animal and clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. These would become a priestly duty in the law. The law hasn't been given yet, but Noah already serves as a priest, making a burnt offering or a going up offering that we read about in Leviticus 1. Leviticus 1 will tell the priests how to handle these going up offerings. You could use bulls, you could use sheep or goats, or you could use a dove or pigeon, but the entire animal would be consumed, so it's the costliest sacrifice. Leviticus says the animal must be presented at the tabernacle, and well, here's Noah with the prototype of the ark. The ark was a shadow of things to come, just as the tabernacle was a shadow of things to come. All the earth is the Lord's, it's all pointing to him. So the animal had to be blameless, tamim, like Noah. Well, Noah used every kind of clean animal and clean bird for this sacrifice. Leviticus 1 says it will be accepted on your behalf to make atonement for you. It is a burnt offering, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Well, now in Genesis 8:21 we read this. And the Lord smelled the soothing aroma and said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of humankind, even though the inclination of their minds is evil from childhood on. I will never again destroy everything that lives, as I have just done. Remember, it had been said that Noah would bring relief from the curse on the ground. And here's the beginning of that. God wouldn't impose further curses on the ground because of humans. And it's because of the sacrifice and obedience of the righteous on behalf of a new humanity. While the earth continues to exist, planting time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease. So as the capstone to this recreation motif, we have a Sabbath reference. In the creation story, God rested when he took up residence as king, and God gives rest to his people. But the cycles of rhythm and order that God established will continue, and God will provide abundantly, even when life seems chaotic. In a world where arbitrary pagan deities just might give you a good crop year if they're properly appeased, this is a unique promise. God is saying, I'm going to provide for you. You need to be faithful and trust me.